Ollie, Rogoschewsky, welcome to Empower Network TV. Very excited you're here.
Thank you very much.
Well, I love this. We always talk off camera prior. We talked, and I just want you, can you please just set it up the way we did when we first opened this? Because, with your husband and what you went through, and then giving, and then writing, and then how you've been healed. And please, yeah.
Sure. So I had always wanted to write, but I found myself in a position where my husband had died from pancreatic cancer. And as I was healing my own grief, I was finding I always talked to people about it, and they would often say they were very stuck in their situation. All types of grief and loss, and ours happened to be a terminal illness, which is another kind of layer when you're going through the treatment, and it's different when you know that the death is coming as well. However, I just thought, I found a lot of ways to keep moving. I always say you keep moving, not sometimes you'll hear people say keep moving forward. Well, I quickly realized you don't always move forward, but it's important just to keep moving. Like sometimes I would find I'd be several steps ahead, but then something would happen and I might be farther back than where I started. So and as well, sometimes we go sideways. It's not, it's just you kind of step a little bit out of it. So there's so many different parts to that, but I thought there has to be a way for me to help other people. I've been through a lot of these parts, and why wouldn't I share that? So I start out on this. I'm going to write my story, and I'm thinking, this is really for other people. And the thing that really surprised me is that it really was so much for myself as well. So that was a huge surprise to me. And I'm going to make a note that it doesn't matter what you're writing about. Even if you're writing like you could be writing a cookbook, you could be writing any kind of a book, and it's surprising how much emotion you're going to draw out.
Why is it so therapeutic for journaling? I do that. Why is it so therapeutic to get it out?
I think it's just when you put it on the page or, into your computer, when you release it, it's like you don't have to focus on that. You can move on to other things.
So it's a way of like honoring something. And then once you've honored it, it doesn't have to consume you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it.
So, okay. So your husband, you knew he was going to pass.
Yes.
I was there. I went through that with my mom. So can you just talk a little bit about what is the process like? The impending finality, even though I feel we're all finite, we're all going to pass. But when
Exactly.
you know that, what was that like for you to have your relationship with him? How did you navigate life differently knowing that?
I found that you look at things, I think so often we're waiting for something. We're trying to, we're not working on that bucket list. Like we're thinking, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough time, lots of things. We tend to say that. But the thing is, I found that we would just do things. Like I remember we used to go to this, we had different opportunities to go to this Christmas celebration. It was to see various trees decorated. And it would always be on a weekend that there was other things going on. Oh, it was a really busy weekend, just timing. And it took quite a bit of time to go through this particular display. And so sometimes I know we would say, oh, we're probably not going to go this year. We just really don't have the time for it. But that year we made a point of going. probably we weren't going to have another year to go. And it really doesn't matter if you finish the activities. It's more important to start. Go on, participate in whatever you can, right? Just enjoy the parts. Another example is for our anniversary. We celebrated it in October. He'd had his diagnosis in June. And actually in June, he was given 2 to 3 months. So, I mean, when we're in October, like he's already lived past, right? And we're like, okay, so we're not going to be having a liquor toast. But one thing that he really loved at that time, it just tasted good for him, was lemonade. So we had a lemonade toast. You know, it didn't matter what we were toasting with, but certainly, you know, celebrate.
I'm curious what you wrote about. Is it more than one thing? What's your process there?
You know, take people through the whole process. Like, first of all, the diagnosis. And that took about a year. And it's partly because there wasn't a history of pancreatic cancer. The pancreas is a hard organ to diagnose. As well, it's a very difficult cancer to survive. And it's because of the pancreas being hidden, it's between some organs. As well, it will sort of mimic other symptoms. So a lot of times it isn't caught early. So I went through, like, you know, getting the diagnosis, then the treatment, and the impending death, and then like including when he went into hospice. And of course, you know, I had no experience with that. I didn't have any idea, and of course, only the guy upstairs knows how long we're going to be here for. But it's still, you know, there was just things. It is hard to prepare. Like, he had 2 different times. He I'll go back just a little. Right at the beginning of his treatment, we were able to get him into a study. So the study, I believe, actually is what bought him some extra time. So he lived for 10 months rather than the 2 to 3. So, I mean, we were all really grateful for that time. Like, it was really hard, but it was just so good to have extra time to work on that list and say those things that we should say all the time. You realize a lot of things, you know, how short life is, and you just don't know. I mean, any of us could be killed in an accident, like right after this interview, you know. You just don't know. So you really have to be grateful for time you have. And I do talk about that in the book too. You know, it's important to recognize that. So as we were going through the options for treatment, really, there's not a lot, and it was like at least a year in. So they said it's terminal. Sometimes that can be operated if it's early enough. So we happened to just get lucky. You had to be late in pancreatic cancer to get into this study. It was all across Canada and the US. And it really made a difference. The first 2 times that they did the assessment, and there's a lot of assessment involved with those, he had the tumor shrink. So that is, I mean, if they ever grow, you're kicked off the study. That was something we didn't even know. We didn't even realize. You know, it probably was really clear in the paperwork, but believe me, there's a lot of paperwork. And there was a lot of like possible, like potential side effects. Like, they had a standard drug that they were going to have him take. But then there was this study drug. So of course you don't know the name of it. It was a double blind study. So that means you don't know if you're on the real drug. Some people are, some aren't. Not even your oncologist has any idea if you're on the real drug. Well, so as we're deciding, I mean, it's everything that he's wanted is to go on this study once he realizes that he's got the diagnosis. So we're sitting there, we're reading through these papers, and there was a page and a half of side effects. This is like an 8.5, 11 page, right? So it's quite a few. It's like, I don't know, maybe like 40 some or. And so then the study nurse happens to call us. And I said, well, we're just looking through these. Like, does this mean that he's going to have like all of these? And she goes, oh, no, no, no. But she said, that's the list. And those are the things that could potentially come up for him. Well, we knew within a day of him taking the study drug, that he was on the real drug. Now, and no one ever acknowledged that until the study was over. But yeah, the very first day, he was really ill. Like things like it involves a lot of pain. So things were really going down, and I really wasn't sure if he would live through the Labor Day weekend, so the September long weekend. And he had had the drug just a little bit prior to that. But that very first day, of course, I'm very analytical. So I've got all those side effects out. And I noticed right away he had 3 things that started happening that never happened before. I'm like, So of course I checked my list. Yep, check, check, check. So that in itself was a boost for him. Like I went to him and I said, I mean, at that point, like it's totally up to the patient if they what they want to do. And I said, you know what? There are 3 things on this list that you never had before. It's like, really? I'm like, well, yeah. And so I said, so that means you're on the real drug, So that just in itself, that just lifted everybody up. I remember telling the oncologist too, and she's like, I'm like, oh, we're pretty sure he's on the real drug. She goes, what? Like it was exciting for her because again, she doesn't know. So yeah, that was all very interesting.
The power of mindset, eh? So he harnessed that to expect to go. So he went to expectancy of a good outcome, even though mindset, he had 3 negative, but he's like, oh, this is a good thing. And then a oncologist belief that's a good thing. So he had longer. Okay. So do you coach people through this process of what does that look like you're coaching? Because please. Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is, what I've found, people are on their own journey. So what I like to do is find out what their particular most difficult part is. Like I always say, you need to get real. So that's remember, express, take action, and live. So people tend to be in different parts. Like sometimes, like most people are afraid someone, even themselves, will forget the loved one. So the remember part's really important. But really, all the parts are, I mean, it depends. Like sometimes initially what I had noticed it under, like when I was still really quite deep in my own grief, it started even with employment. When people get laid off and then they start blaming themselves. They're trying to figure out what they did wrong. When in all honesty, a lot of times it has nothing to do with them. It's a business decision. There's all kinds of things that could have caused that layoff. So I started helping people with that initially. And then I wrote my book and even like pets, of course, they're family as well. So the other thing, I found a lot of people would talk to me about when their family member had a terminal illness. And a lot of times when people are terminally ill, they don't share with their loved ones what's going on. So people would talk to me about that, and they're like, like they are almost impossible to live with. We don't know what to do, we don't know what to say, and we don't know where they're at. Like, can we help? So there's so many. So that's why it really depends where people are at. Because it isn't necessarily, sometimes it's the loss of the life that you once knew. So that's a kind of like so really, with me, generally people that I work with, they've got other things kind of attached. It's either they've got, either there's a terminal illness, there's an addiction, or there's domestic violence, and sometimes all of those. So they tend to not be just grief and loss, you know. Not to say that that isn't a big. I mean, they're all difficult things to navigate, but yeah. So the remembering, expressing how you feel is really important. At Once you have done some grieving, which of course there's no exact amount of time for each person, you're going to need to take some action, and then you want to live. You want you want to not feel guilt about enjoying yourself. Like, I just don't believe that that's how we were meant to be. There's so many opportunities out there, and I am also very intuitive, and so I feel that people that have passed aren't that far away, that we can still communicate with them. So that's another, it's a big area. But I'm finding when I first started talking about this, sometimes I'd be a little hesitant to say that, but I put it right. I'm very clear. I'm an intuitive author. I get when I start writing, I'll put the pen down or stop on the computer, and then when I'm doing my draft, when I'm reading my first draft, much after I've finished it, I'm like, oh, that's when I learned the story,
I
which
want
I
to,
think is
I want to hit this. I want to hit what you just said, because I'm going to tell you my belief currently, and I would ask you if you believe this, or if you know, there's something to counter it with. But I believe
Mhm.
that everyone is that, but we have to come back to that, because there's times where I do videos or something, and I go, how in the world did that come out of me? And I find my most brilliant moments, zero planning. I literally,
Mhm.
it streams to me from God or from universe, from my own heart, or somehow it's connected and it comes out. And I go, wow, that was amazing. It's when I'm getting out of my own way. So I believe that everyone is supposed to be this way, maybe different modalities. Maybe some are writers, some are thinkers, some are video, whatever. What do you think of that? What's your thoughts?
Absolutely, I agree with that totally. Like, people, we all have intuitive ability. It's whether we tap into it or not.
So do you think we're tapping into it, or do you think we're getting out of the way?
Could be both. Really, yes. Sometimes, like, I know myself, I didn't realize I had such intuition. I really was almost not aware of it until I started writing. And I actually, for a long time, for probably a couple of years, I thought, oh, these are two different things. And it would be hard to sort of coordinate and kind of explain to people how they work together. And I just thought it was coincidental to start with, because as soon as I started writing, my intuition just, it was like it was on, it just expanded so much. And so I thought I had the two paths. And then eventually I realized, oh, no, 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 this is all the same. It's just all come together. That's what revealed the writing, revealed the intuition. I remember even really young, different things. But I think what's hard about it is sometimes people don't know how to express their intuition.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about given it shall be given to you. So I want to know your opinion. The areas where you are given the most
Mhm.
after you've given and you receive back, are these areas laborious and challenging for you to give? Are they a joy for you to give? What are you noticing when you give and it's given back?
Oh, it's definitely a joy, and it's effortless. It's just very, very comfortable.
What does that tell you about the ultimate goal or state of life to achieve? Like, is life supposed to be a struggle?
No, no, I really don't believe it is. I think we overthink. I know I'm definitely guilty of that one. You know, just I think we're just supposed to be in a much more relaxed state. Like that's what I've really been noticing. I would say, especially the last, say, 3 months, everything all around. I actually started celebrating Christmas really early this year, like January 15th, basically. And I happened to be visiting somewhere. It was the 16th. Someone had a tree lighting ceremony at a hotel I was staying at, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what all the action is here. And here they're like, oh yeah, we've got this all shut down here because it's a tree lighting ceremony. I'm like, okay, perfect. And I mean, I really love Christmas anyway. And really, it just kind of went on from there. And what I noticed every time I went somewhere, I'm like, wow, everything in the store. It seemed like it was just like, this is for relaxing. Here's all these robes, pajamas, slippers, just, you know, uh, things where they're talking about massage or, mindset and journaling. And I'm just like, oh, wow. And really, yeah, no, we definitely need to have a lot more just calm in our lives. And that's what I have really noticed that over the years. It's just I just find that I work more on it all the time. And your self-care, which of course means different things to different people.
Animals, if we follow the animals, they certainly seem to be chill. Unless they're being chased by an actual predator, not a pretend
Yeah.
predator. They're super
Mhm.
chill. They're just relaxing and enjoying life. Final thoughts, final comments, final for the audience. Anything you want to leave them with?
I think we have all uh the opportunity to face our grief and loss at our own perception. And there's like, absolutely take your time to grieve, but then be sure to keep living, to keep moving. I'm definitely, available to help out if people need different ideas how to do that. It's there's so much. We've got a whole life ahead of us, and it's death is a natural part of life. It's actually a very miraculous thing, and it's the same, very much the same as birth. Birth and death are amazing experiences, and those loved ones that leave us, they're not far away.
Just beyond the veil, eh? Just beyond the veil.
Exactly. Yeah.
Please drop your links, any links you have in the Facebook comment section after, so people
Okay.
can get in contact with you. Thank you, Holly, for being here. This has been awesome. And thank you, ENTV, for watching. Please reach out to Holly. She would love to connect with you if this resonates with you. Holly, you're an absolute joy. I love your attitude and your perspective.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We'll end the broadcast here.
Okay.